Shabbat Shalom. I want to wish Yasher Koach again to Emma and to Mark for teaching Timely Torah for us so beautifully. For everyone who was at Timely Torah, we dug into some of the comedic elements that exist in Parashat Balak. And whenever you have a parasha with a talking donkey, there's going to be some comedic elements that comes with the territory. But there are two parts of this parasha that I think make it hilarious. Really hilarious. So let me give you a rundown. I know that we just read it, Saul read beautifully for us this morning, but let me give you a rundown what happens in the parasha. Balak, who's the king of Moab, sees the Israelites coming through the desert. He sees, we're going to go back to this in a little bit, but he sees them from the heights, and he sees them coming, and he says, Oy vizmir, these people, they're coming, and there's so many of them that they are going to consume everything. They are going to destroy my kingdom by eating all of my food, by drinking all of my water. I need to look out for my people, and I need to make sure that I destroy them. So he sends out for a mercenary prophet, someone named Balaam, who's actually very, very, very far away. So this is a very big deal, that he's willing to go to these lengths to bring Balaam. And this is the part that is actually where it usually gets the most attention, but I'm going to skip through this pretty quickly. But Balaam is reticent. He doesn't want to do it. He talks, Hashem says, these are my people. You're not going to curse my people. And Balaam says, I'm not allowed to go. But then Balak eventually puts more pressure on him, and again, Balaam goes and dreams, and Hashem speaks to Balaam and says, you know what? Go. You can go, but you are only going to say what I tell you to say. So he agrees, and he goes about, and this is where the talking donkey comes into play. And the donkey is moving this way and that, and the donkey sees an angel, and Balaam doesn't see the angel, so there's a lot to unpack there. And the donkey talks to him and says, what are you doing? Why are you beating me? And this is a very funny part, but I'm going to skip over it. I hope it's okay. So then eventually, Balaam gets to Moab. He comes to Balak, and he says, listen, this is the funny part, one of the funny parts here. He actually says, I can't do anything unless the God of Israel allows me to do it. And Balak says, okay, which doesn't make any sense because it's like, oh, I'm sure the God of Israel is going to allow you to curse God's people. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So he goes up to the first mountaintop and he tries to curse the Israelites, and what comes out? Blessings. So Balak says, this isn't how I imagined this. Let's go to a second overlook. And he goes to a second overlook, and the same thing happens. And then he goes to a third overlook, and the same thing happens. Now here's the hilarious part. This is one of the most dramatic stories in all of the later parts of Torah. It's an incredible narrative, and it has consequences. The Israelites are almost sabotaged and wiped out by this prophet, and the Israelites are completely oblivious. The whole story, they're just hanging out. They don't know anything about what's going on. It's like you can just see them like playing matkot on the beach and like hanging out, having barbecue, whatever they're doing. They're completely oblivious to all that takes place. But the second part that's really funny is that Balak's whole concern, his whole worry, is that these people are going to consume all of his kingdom. What are the Israelites eating? Manna from heaven and miracle water. They're literally draining no resources from anyone. It's a really fascinating, it's hilarious. I think it's very intentionally done this way. But it's a fascinating thing because the great majority of the time, when we're reading our Torah portions, as Jews, we're supposed to see ourselves in the positions of our ancestors. It's what makes the Pesach story, the Pesach Seder, so powerful and meaningful, because written into our Haggadah it is as we ourselves are emerging from Egypt, right? But that's not just for our Haggadah. That's for everything we do. When we study Torah, it is we ourselves who are living the story that we're reading. But what's different about this parasha is that instead of putting ourselves in the position of our ancestors, this Torah portion puts us in the footsteps, in the shoes of one of our enemies. And it says, imagine yourself in this position, that you see something that seems so insurmountable, so huge, so devastating. And what do? You panic. You worry. It puts us in the position not of Am Yisrael, but of Balak. Now, why this is important is that worrying, being concerned, being terrified of what's out there is part of who we are. We're people. It is built into us biologically that when we perceive a threat, that we are supposed to respond and avoid that threat. That's how we're built. But our biology didn't take into consideration that someday we could be 2025 and that all of the perceived threats could be around us, ubiquitous, to a point where we can be absolutely crippled by them. The 24-hour news cycle, doom scrolling in your social media, news and concerns, all of these things around us, the idea of this imminent threat, we can get it every moment of every day. And it can be crippling. It can keep us from doing anything at all. It puts us in the position of Balak, where we say, Oy vez mir. What am I supposed to do? Take a look at the world around you. There's terrible things everywhere. There's floods and famine and death and war and tragedy, all of these things that are surrounding us all the time. How are we supposed to live in a world where all of these terrible things are happening all the time? It can keep us down. And you know what? Each and every year they come out with this study, which is a measurement of happiness that they track for all of the different countries in the world. And each and every year, America falls further and further and further down that list. But you know who doesn't and actually goes higher each and every year? Israel. And the last time they did this study was this year. And America is, I think, 26th on that list, and Israel is 8th. In happiness after 2 years of war, after hostages, after everything that is happening to our brothers and sisters in Medinat Yisrael, and their happiness is significantly higher than ours. Significantly. We have to be able to understand what the threats are around us, what our worries, what our concerns are, and then we have to understand what's the real threat. Is it the things we're worried about? Or is it us worrying about them? So I know there's some doctors in here who can tell you that one of the worst things we can do for our health is to constantly be obsessed and consumed with all the negativity and the bad things. There is an idea, it's not placebo. Might be linked to the placebo effect, but the idea of fake it till you make it has medical credibility to it. That thinking positively, thinking about hope, thinking about goodness makes us healthier. Physically healthier, emotionally healthier, spiritually healthier. And there's a fascinating study that came out in 2020 that came out in the Journal of Behavioral Therapy. These two researchers named LaFerriere and Newman came out with this study where they took volunteers. And it was this big sample size, and they said for months, it might have been even more than months, might have been years, we are going to track all the things that you're worried about based on you telling us what you're concerned about, but we're also going to find your search history. We're going to see the things online that you scroll through and you linger on, the things that are really concerning you that we know that you're spending time about, and we're going to track them. And at the end of the study, the percentage of the things that these people were worried about, the percentage that didn't come to any kind of fruition was 91.4%. 91.4% of the things these people were worried about never showed themselves. Now, here's what I don't want you to hear this morning. I don't want you to walk away saying, the rabbi said we don't have to worry about anything. That's not what I'm saying. There are threats out there. There are real concerns. There are problems. There are issues. And if anything, we as Jews know that it is our duty not to ignore those things, but actually to make this world a better, just, nicer, kinder, healthier place. That is incumbent upon us as who we are as Jews. But there are also things that we are consumed with, obsessed with, that are bigger threats to us than the threat itself. And I want to end with one last story. When I lived in Israel, long ago, one of the expressions in Israel that drove me crazy was the expression, Yihyeh beseder. Yihyeh beseder. My Hebrew speakers, what does Yihyeh beseder mean? It's going to be okay. Yihyeh beseder. I used to consider it to be so patronizing that I'm in like the miklat, I'm in the bomb shelter for the first time, and I'm scared. Yihyeh beseder, beseder. I got offered a job once, and they said, you can come up and live up here. It was in this beautiful area right next to the Lebanon border. And they said, this can be your job. And I said, there's no way I could ever afford to live anywhere near this place. And they, Yihyeh beseder. It wasn't beseder. There was no way I was going to afford to be able to go there. But this mindset is an incredible mindset. Can you imagine our brothers and sisters who have just lived through years of incredible tragedy and loss and grief, and how they make it through is, Yihyeh beseder. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So I don't know who needs to hear this morning, but based on this study, it seems like all of us do. But this is the one takeaway that I want you to hear this morning. Whoever needs to hear it, Yihyeh beseder. It's going to be okay. It is. And if you're really worried about something, if you know that something won't be quite beseder, I want you to look around to the people that are sitting next to you, because that's what makes it beseder. Truly. That's what this is about. We take care of one another. We understand what it means to be mishpacha, what it means to be family. And when you hold on tight and when you have a support system like we have, Yihyeh beseder. It's going to be okay. Shabbat shalom, everyone.